True story number 1: horrifying experience during quarantine. I was upstairs in my room one night playing video games with the volume really loud when I thought I heard noises coming from downstairs. I muted the TV and listened closer. Nothing. I resumed playing the game for another hour when I heard it again, only louder. I was sure I heard it this time and was a little freaked out. To assure myself, I went downstairs to the basement where I thought I heard the noise coming from. As soon as I opened the basement door, I was hit with a cold breeze. I went downstairs and saw the window wide open. I was 100% sure I had closed and locked all the windows in the house. I was ready to make a run for it when something stopped me. I turned around and for the first time noticed the closet door was slightly cracked open. I stood for what seemed like 30 minutes in front of the door debating whether I should open it. I moved closer and put my hand on the doorknob. All of a sudden I heard a creepy crackle coming from inside the closet. I have never run faster up a flight of stairs before. I locked the door and called the cops, who had an unusually fast response time. They came in and searched the house, and not even 5 minutes into their search I heard a gunshot from downstairs. A few minutes later they came out with a deranged-looking man, probably homeless. They put him in the back of the car and told me they had opened the door and the man was holding a gunshot at them and missed. He luckily missed and the cops disarmed him and arrested him. The scariest part was how close I was to opening that door and likely being murdered. Get ready for story number 2. Also, please like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel and is completely free to do.
My brother didn't leave his room for 3 days. My parents wouldn't let me check on him. On the third night Jacob didn't come out of his room. I got the courage to bring it up to Mom. "People don't sleep for this long," I said. She was cooking a casserole, the 6th one this week. We were running out of fridge space for the leftovers, but she kept making more. I would watch her from the corner of the kitchen, her posture curved and her newly grayed hair hanging over the food. I walked over and tugged at her sleeve, but she didn't respond. She was slathering butter on the top crust. "Mom," I said. "Did you hear me?" "He needs his strength," she said. "We can't be bothering him." Before I could say anything, Dad walked in. His eyes were red and swollen, but he was smiling. He had 3 cans of Coke in his hands. "I'm starving," he said. "I still have the taste of that horrible cafeteria food in my mouth." "You would think hospitals had good food for how much money they make," Mom said. "I know, right?" Dad said. He placed the Cokes on the counter. Mom didn't want us to go near Jacob's room, but I was getting worried. I peered out from the kitchen. His room hung at the end of the hallway like an abandoned lighthouse, the only sign of life being the NY Yankees poster taped to his door. Near the ground, there was a small sliver of space to see if he had turned on his lights. It was still dark, as it had been for the last 3 days. I turned back to Mom. "Shouldn't we check on him?" I asked. "I don't know why places like Wendy's or Burger King don't put up little shops in hospital," Dad went on. "I mean, you have hundreds of people who are stuck there for days on end. That's consistent business." "It's all politics," Mom said. "They sign these big contracts that are impossible to break." Right. That makes sense. Right." Dad was standing next to Mom now, his face inches from the casserole. He took a long sniff. "Ah," he said. "Smells great." "Do you want some of the leftovers while this finishes in the oven?" she asked. "I think we still have some from yesterday. Wasn't the spinach and ricotta one good?" "Very good. Very, very good," he said. I couldn't stop eating it. "Jacob's gonna devour these when he gets the appetite," Mom said. I turned back and took a step into the hallway. The distance between me and his room felt long and narrow, like a high wire. When I got away from the casserole smell, I hit a different smell. It reminded me of old gym socks. Even with Mom's array of candles and incense, I still smelled it. It cut through everything. The last time I saw Jacob was on the drive home from his treatment. His face was a pale green and his eyes kept rolling back. Mom said I had to keep talking to him, to keep his focus. I told him about my friends from school and how they keep pranking the teacher by putting tacks on her chair. It wasn't true, I saw it on a TV show once, but I was running out of material. It didn't matter though. Jacob didn't even respond. All he did was cough. Pink drool was spilling onto his t-shirt. "Danny," Mom said. "Why don't you heat up some of those leftovers? We're all craving that spinach and ricotta casserole. I can't stop thinking about it, Dad said. I was dreaming about it last night. I ignored them. I kept my focus on my brother's door. I didn't dream about the casserole like Dad, I kept having a different dream. My brother was running into my room and flicking my ear. It was a game we used to play. We would tiptoe up to the other's door, then wait for our moment. Then, the attacker ran in and got 1 or 2 good flicks before retreating. In my dream though, Jacob would run in and flick me, but I wouldn't move. I just stood there. He would flick, and laugh, then flick some more. Sometimes, he would flick so hard my ear flew off. Earth to Danny, Dad said, snapping his fingers in my face. He was standing in front of me, blocking my view of Jacob's door. Do you mind heating up 4 portions of the casserole in case Jacob wants some? We're going to eat that before this next casserole because we want to make sure Jacob's able to try it because, in my opinion, it was definitely one of your mom's best. I looked up at him and held my eye contact. I couldn't say what I was thinking, so I wanted Dad to feel it. Maybe, if I stared long enough, my feelings would translate. But, Dad looked at me for only a moment, then away. In that brief connection though, I saw something I didn't want to see. It was like staring down the tunnel of the world's deepest well. Come on now, he said. He grabbed my shoulders and turned me around. His voice got heavier. You're going to want to heat up each piece individually because if you do them all at once then you won't get even heat through the pieces and you'll probably have a couple that are too hot and others that are too cold and then Jacob won't get the full picture of how good these casseroles are. Dad let go of my shoulders and walked ahead of me, but I stayed in the hallway a moment longer. I turned to look at my brother's door one last time. I fantasized about walking up to it and going inside. But, I was afraid Mom would yell at me. Besides, I never liked going in there. He had a puke bucket next to his bed which always had pink splatters in it, and there were always clumps of hair on his pillows. Back before the last hospital visit, Mom would make me go in there and talk to him, but I always made up some excuse, like I had a cold and didn't want to get him sick. When I couldn't get out of it, I would stay in there for a few minutes and watch him try to breathe. I would tell him about some TV episode I saw, then run back to my room. I looked up. I thought I was walking back to the kitchen, but I was moving toward the door. I didn't want to, but I kept moving, like my limbs were controlled by a puppeteer. I put my hand on the doorknob. I turned. The gym sock smell filled my head like helium. Through the darkness, I could make out a sliver of my brother's face. The soft evening light fell on him. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His arms were straight as rulers and his fingers curled like a blooming rose. I walked to side of his bed. Red spit fell off his lips. He looked like a frowning clown. I flicked his ear. It was hard. I walked out and closed the door behind me. As I walked back, I seemed to forget what the inside of his room looked like. With the door closed, it could be anything. Jacob could be doing jumping jacks, or reading comic books, or plotting his next ear flick attack. When I walked into the kitchen, I heated up 4 plates of spinach and ricotta casserole. When they were done, I wrapped Jacob's plate in aluminum foil and put it in the oven to keep warm. Then, Mom, Dad, and I sat in the dining room and ate in silence.
Daddy's never gonna hurt you again. I was my dad's only child. Being the daughter, you'd assume a father would be protective. I'd get beat regularly, and much worse. When you're 6, you'll do what you have to in order to survive, because running away is not an option. I suppose I knew it was coming. It was Friday night, and once night had fallen and it was only my mother and I. The dreaded routine of beatings and grasping at the straws of futility would only be a matter of time. Go, Lily. Go sit in the closet and wait for me. My mother was a Cuban immigrant with nothing but courage flowing through her veins. Still, I never understood at the time what a restraining order was, nor why it could so easily be broken. When the rumbling engine rang out and potent exhaust fumes began to flow through the vents, I could only recoil, because evasion was my only defense. Predicting that the level of his rage depended on the force of the car door slamming, so when it audibly shattered the driver's side window, I knew it was worse than ever. As a child, my anxiety would render me unable to move. A spider flash lit. I couldn't make split decisions. So when the door is kicked down and I hear Helena. Helena, you bitch. That door better be unlocked. I likely was staying put, even if running was the best choice. By this point I dissociated from my body by focusing on two ants on the floor carrying piles of potato chip crumbs when the thud of my mother's body hit the kitchen floor. I could unwittingly escape the horrors inevitable to come by staring at a spot on the wall, and imagining myself watching from the other side of the room to cope until it ended, every single time. As for Mother, this night, no words were uttered. She never got a chance. Lily, baby, Daddy's home. Come out and Daddy won't be mad. Muscles tensed agonizingly tight, I was frozen once again. Tears streaming down my cheeks, I'd learned to cry silently. The stumbling, uneven footsteps on the first floor told me he was more inebriated than usual, and also it told me that Mom was really hurt. Usually she'd fight him with every fiber of her being on his way to the staircase, despite it always resulting in bloodshed. And then, 1, 2, 3. The footsteps creaked up the steps. Lily, here I come. Better be special for me tonight. Be a good girl and come out. Mom always instructed me to hide in different places, but never thought to tell me to just leave. The internal force of my inability to react and the external evil of my impending death had me feeling acceptance. At only 6 years old, I was already prepared to die, and die horribly. 4, 5, almost up the steps. I'm a spider under a flashlight, wanting so terribly to make the decision to run to the bathroom and hide behind the curtain, but too frightened to act on it. Mommy, if ghosts exist, then please do something. Then, that inevitable cracking of the broken top step. He's here. Dad was at the top of the steps. The bathroom. The shower curtain. Hide in plain sight. Do it, Lily. It's your only chance. The first place he'll look is the closet. I was screaming inside. Then I heard the bathroom door slowly creak opened, steps moving inside, and the shower curtain, metal against metal, he'd ripped it off the hinges. No Lily there. Where could she be? Where did Mommy hide you this time? Sweating, heart racing, fingers running up and down the delicate skin of my belly, and brush over the soft skin of my arms, over top of the already existing scars. How much worse will it get? How much more blood would I lose once again? Dad was just outside the bedroom, and then the footsteps halted, right outside the door. By the sound of the metal against the hollow door, I knew tonight he had a bat. Broke my legs with it once. I began to grip and pull at my clothes, and then, I couldn't stop it. I began crying profusely, and in an effort to hopefully live, even if it meant disfigurement, I stood up, and got ready to step out into the shadow of a 6-foot-tall, brooding figure bearing down on me. Ready to take the whipping, beating, or worse, that thing which would awaken me and sweat from my nightly terrors. If baby girl's in the closet, come out wherever you are. I'd accepted my fate. And then a dull, loud tack noise, and vibration of the floor from a loud slam. Dad was so drunk, he'd fallen over. Maybe now I could run, but I couldn't get my legs to move. And then, the visual of my mom's bloody corpse flashed in my mind, and miraculously, something imperceptible caused me to jump up and run. I pushed out of the closet and ran to the door, prepared to jump over Dad's hopefully unconscious body and leave out the back door. And as I approached the door, I was stopped in my tracks. Standing in the hallway was my mother, unharmed and untouched. And at her feet, Dad's lifeless body with an axe in his back. I gazed up at my mother with watery eyes in wonder and astonishment, and when her eyes met mine, she said the sweetest thing to ever fall upon my ears. Mama found a good hiding spot, baby. Daddy's never gonna hurt you again. If you made it all the way to the end, we really appreciate you. Leave a comment below with new topics you would like to see. Like and subscribe. In the meantime, stay safe out there.